Welcome, everybody. I'm Rick DiClemente. This is Astrology Unplugged, episode 171. Welcome in the middle of this virus. Everybody's holed up, and all of a sudden, imagine camera sales. Whew. Computer camera sales must be going off the charts. Good to see Amy tonight. She's not usually with us. And some newcomers. Now, I want to start by talking to you a little bit about Pluto tonight, but we're going to go into Neptune and in Trump's chart. You're going to see why it's such a big deal. But I want to start by looking at this. You'll realize here that I told you for months this was coming. In Trump's chart, this is Trump's chart, which has been rectified by a very fine astrologer named Alfie Lavoie. And as I told you, most people have Trump's chart and they argue about the minute he was born. And some people have a real expertise at rectifying a chart by working backward from events. And this guy has Mars about 5 degrees below the ascendant rising. Some people have Mars right on the ascendant. And certainly Mars in Leo is a major characteristic of Mr. Trump. But we're working with this chart. But the thing I wanted to tell you about is the weak spot in Trump's chart is this Venus-Saturn, which is hidden in the 12th house. It's very suppressed. It is the opposite of this blowhard Mars in Leo. It is the part of him that's recoiling all the time. What am I going to do? People aren't treating me fair. Oh boy, you're attacking. I gave you a date the last couple of months, and the date came, and the date was the very day that he mixed up his little potion and told people to drink this stuff. And I got to get this there, guys. All right. And you'll notice when Pluto was here recently, just in the last couple of weeks, it was exactly opposite this Venus-Saturn. And that Venus-Saturn is the center of his nobody loves me, I've got to get closed. It's very negative side of Cancer. Pluto hit it. And what it did, as I told you all along, when Pluto's on you and you're not using it right, what does Pluto do? Hi, Marcia, bud. Pluto takes away your support systems. Now, on one hand, Mr. Trump has lost his ability to go all the night after night or every other night to his campaign rallies, which is otherwise known as ego support for false stories. Then he went on TV every night and was doing the same thing every night. And then he put not only one foot, but all the shoes in a shoe store in his mouth, about talking about swallowing poison and putting lights up in your veins. So he gets thoroughly embarrassed. And he blamed everybody else, of course. But what he did is he cut off another major support system. So this guy cannot work without a support system. His rallies on TV, he can't do it. Now, Pluto is heading on that Venus. It's going to be hitting that Venus-Saturn all year long, and it's just going to keep breaking him into smaller and smaller pieces. Now, on the positive side, if he were to pick up Pluto properly, like most people, he would turn around and start treating people right. That's what it's about. But he's not going to do that. But tonight's about something else. I just want to make sure you saw that. Tonight is about something else. You'll notice in his chart, all right, this is, no matter what, his moon is in Sagittarius. He is born during an eclipse, of course. His sun is 22, 23 of Gemini. His moon is around 21 of Sagittarius. This is why these are three major indications of somebody that just loses control. Just does. Now, when the moon is in Sag by itself, this is a sort of a bucket pattern. Here's the bucket. Here's the handle. It would be more of a true bucket if the moon were over here. But this is still a bucket. And what that does is that makes that planet more powerful. The moon in everybody's chart, I gotta check one of these microphones here, is your second most important planet. So when your moon gets hit, there it is. I think it's Ruthie. All right. Okay. Now, your moon is your emotional nature. Very, very important in astrology. In your sun sign, your moon could be anywhere in the 12 signs. Because each time we go into the sun sign, the moon goes around completely. So there are Aries with moon in Aries, there are Aries with moon in Taurus, Aries with moon in Gemini, etc. So his moon is really, really powerful. And this is the kind of person you do not want to have a moon in Sagittarius, because he's already got a sun in Gemini. The sun is next to Uranus, and he's got Mars and Leo rising. He's just fiery, fiery, fiery. And when you're real, real fiery, it lends you towards being cocky. All right. Now, what's going on now is this, and this is a real big story. In his lifetime, Neptune started out here, and Neptune slowly moved all this way, 1980, when he had all of his bankruptcies, Neptune was going over this. Now, years later, 2020, Neptune is right here. Neptune's at 20. Neptune is exactly square to the moon, and it's exactly square to this axis. Axes in astrology are a big deal. So this Sun, Uranus, opposite moon is a real big major part of his personality. And Neptune sitting at the point, squaring that, squaring that, squaring that. We're going to focus only now on Neptune square the moon. All right. This has already happened 3 times in this chart. He's got 2 more times coming. Neptune is so massive and so powerful, you do not need to have it be exact. It's a general error. All right, now let's talk about what Neptune does for everybody. Remember, Neptune's hitting his chart. Neptune is a planet that's unlike all the other. It is a planet of peace and harmony and smoothing things out. It has no idea how to help you on the physical plane. It has no idea that you're even an individual, because you're not. Neptune is the Christ-like planet. It requires you to be selfless, because it does not recognize pieces. It only recognizes the one. So the people who suffer when Neptune's around are the ones that want to keep advancing on the material plane. And the ones who are really advanced with Neptune are the ones who are trying to get away from the physical plane, trying to become more spiritual. It's a very, very confusing planet. It's right on his moon, and I'm going to tell you right now what that means. When you have a leader of a corporation, or you work in a grocery store, and there's a president of the grocery store, that guy's chart will represent everybody that works in that grocery chain. When it gets hit, he's the head. We are in a quantum world. We need to start thinking that way. That means we're all interconnected, and I mean it really tightly interconnected. So therefore, everything that happens in Trump's chart affects all of America and the whole planet, because he's the head of the world. And I guarantee you, the day he goes out of office, you can stop thinking this way. I have other astrologers that argue with me. Oh, that's ridiculous. Oh, that's silly. That can't happen. Well, it does. And I'll tell you why they disagree with me. Because they haven't done their work. I do the work. I look at this, I look at this, I look at that. I just never stop looking. And when a head of a corporation is hit, the head of a family is hit, think of yourself in your teepee and you're with your tribe. And your chief has gone out to have negotiations with another tribal leader. You think what's happening to him is not going to affect you? That's the microcosm. So exactly, I've seen it because I've tested it. When the head of some place gets this plus or minus, this energy, that energy, the whole body underneath that person is affected. And Neptune square moon means exactly one thing. The direct translation: muddy the waters, uncertain soil, shaky stance, quicksand. Those things sound familiar to you? Everything's uncertain. Everything's unheard. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know. Neptune certainly rules drugs and it rules viruses, etc. Very difficult to talk about because here's what's difficult to talk about. Usually when Neptune is on you, it brings all kind of illnesses, but the illnesses are not real because you're having the illness because you're hypersensitive. You become more sensitive when Neptune hits you to noise, to sound, to food. So it's not so much what the planet's doing to you, it's that you're changing. People I've been talking to, they will have taste things differently. They'll see things differently. You'll want to stop playing rock and roll, start playing more classical. Neptune refines what it touches. Now, it's very important that you understand what it does in the positive and negative sense. On the positive sense, most people in the world cannot handle Neptune when it hits you. You've probably all had periods in your life where you were like, ooh, what the hell's going on? And you couldn't figure it out. That's when Neptune was on you. Okay? Because Neptune does not support the physical world. It hit me in 1978. And I was just starting into astrology, 1975, one of those years. I was in meditation, and my mind became totally unbounded. Totally unbounded. I didn't even know that it was bounded. I didn't know it could become unbounded. And it did, and it has never come back. I'm grateful because I can understand it. I can deal with it. I read about it. I study it. I appreciate it. So the real way to blossom during a Neptune time is such as the Eastern Indians with their Hindu work and with their Zen work. Neptune is Zen. If you try to go into a period and advance physically, materially, Neptune will stop you. Neptune will make you lose. If you go into it wanting to advance spiritually, you'll have great struggle, great pride, great success. An example of Neptune's, who's a real Neptune individual, is the Dalai Lama. And he was one of the very few people that Neptune went over him when he got his Nobel Prize. Most people do not understand when Neptune's over them because they sense something's wrong, but they don't know how to put their finger on it. Now, remember, if you're typing to me text messages, I won't be able to reply to them. So the real positive way to use Neptune is, as I say, you go into your little altar at home, you do your meditation, you get away from gross people, you get away from loud stuff, and you get into the quietude of yourself, very much like Emerson and Thoreau. Those are very Neptunian scenes, using it to transcend the rigid individual illusion. And they both touched on the transcendental. That's the proper use of Neptune. Neptune went over Einstein, and he had 5 major realizations all at once in 1905. Got the Nobel Prize. So if you are smart and you put your ego in perspective and realize that you're really the bigger thing and the self is a certain small construct, then you'll do okay. But if you don't, and you think everything you are my job, my kids, my wife, all this stuff, my body, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. Neptune is squaring the moon of the president. Moon's here. His sun and Sun, Uranus up here, Moon down here, Neptune squaring them both. If you are like a normal person, what you'll have is you'll have some confusing time. It's very common that the person starts into drugs, into alcohol, and has affairs. And the affair will be exposed. These are very common experiences when Neptune is on you. Why? Because what Neptune really does to you is it calls from inside. It's like that silent voice calling you, come home to the bliss, come home. But Americans are not trained well. We're not trained well in this topic. So what we pick up, what we do with that energy is we misunderstand it, and we walk around saying, if only she were better in the kitchen, if only he made more money, if only his kids were more quiet, whatever, I just want to get away. So Neptune makes you want to escape. But the abuse of Neptune is to escape. The use of Neptune is to approach the clouds consciously. But the abuse of it is to run away. And you got the right instinct to run away because the physical world surely isn't Neptune. And Neptune shows you that everything around you is not going to satisfy you. That only going here deep within will satisfy you. Now, it's not easy. So when Neptune's on people exactly, they run away, alcohol, drugs. And it's very much when you have an affair and the affair blows up, it's very much like the cat hiding behind a tree. And he thinks you don't see him. I'm here, you can't see me. These are the people having affairs, and everybody knows what's going on. But the person under the Neptune transit thinks they're safe, that they're cool. And it's so common because once that's set up and then the full moon comes along, or the transiting sun comes along, it's all exposed. And then, whoo, what the hell happened? Neptune is what hit the United States chart in the 90s, in the 2000s, when all of a sudden, Neptune went off of our chart. And what did we say? How did all these Mexicans get here? We knew all along that they were being abused by the Republicans for cheap labor, and they were being abused by the Democrats for votes. We knew what was going on. We accepted the self-delusion. So that's how Neptune worked. Everything starts to sip away. It just starts to seep away. Things start to melt. You start to lose this. It's not like Pluto bombarding and Uranus with a lightning bolt or Saturn with a brick wall. Neptune is very subtle, very powerful. Just like a cloud, they use the cloud machine on stage when they want to do that mystical heaven stuff. And they're pumping that smoke out on stage. You see the wisps of smoke. That's what happens with Neptune. It's very quiet, and it's really, really powerful. And if you get in touch with it, it is the planet that expands your intuition, because you get beyond the boundaries of what you think you are. And you start to become what you really are, which is one with all of us. So that's why most people don't handle Neptune well. They don't understand it. I've seen friends go nuts during these times. I've seen friends go to the hospital. I've seen doctor after doctor after doctor unable to find out what was wrong. The symptoms there, they can't describe it. Try this, it's a virus. They guess. 90% of my clients under a Neptune transit are getting ill because they're becoming more sensitive. And things didn't bother them before, now it bothers them. And once they realize that, they can get in charge of it, get on top of what's psychosomatic, and can heal themselves. So, the person who abuses Neptune goes off and lives in La La Land. And sometimes Neptune's so strong, depending on the chart, sometimes the person just goes to La La Land and they're not going to come back. And that's happened to Trump. La La Land, which means, how do I say this? I said in my book, The Exquisite Zodiac, that in my opinion, after working really closely with the 12 signs, every sign has a trap. And the biggest trap of all is the Leo trap. And he, even though he's a Gemini, he's got Mars and Leo rising. And the reason the Leo trap is so deadly is because they live in a false universe and they end up believing their own story. If you're in their universe and you're agreeing, then you're allowed in. If you're not, throws you out. You don't agree with their stuff, throws you out. Emperor has clothes on, no, he doesn't, throw you out. That's what Neptune does. So you ask yourself, why do people have trouble with Neptune? One of the main reasons they have trouble with Neptune is because they go through great periods of delusion. They're delusioned. They're deluded by other people, deceived. I've seen people lose all their money. I've seen people lose their investments. I've seen people lose millions of dollars recently. And why did they lose the money? Because here's why it really happened. Neptune was on, people took their money. Why? When Neptune didn't come up and say, hey, here's some money, let's steal it. That's not what happened to them. What happened to the people recently that I work with that just lost millions of dollars is coming into the time period that they came into. They went and bought some businesses and businesses failed. But the reason they were deceived, the reason it all come crashing during a Neptune time was because they were ignoring their own spiritual life. You can't ignore your spiritual life because it's the most important part of you. And when you ignore it, it's just like chopping off your connection to God, your life source. So in other words, they came to me, they found out their $5 million broker, poorer, but they started to see that they had physical options in front of them, more money, or their spiritual work. They were doing great spiritual work. They chose to repress that and go with the worldly stuff. So Neptune didn't stop them. Their own inside stopped them. They had to learn that tough of a lesson. Now, if you're real spiritual and you want to go make money and you want to double your money and you're like Michael Singer, the writer in Florida, who wrote the book about the untethered soul, he had billions, he had millions. If IRS came and took his money, FBI came and took his money, he didn't care. He just kept meditating. He got the millions back. He's not attached to it. Now, the word of problem comes in as this. It's a tough subject. I kept saying for a couple of years now, because I knew what kind of state we're in, I got to the point where I couldn't even talk anymore about what's going on, because what's going on is so nasty, heavy. And I kept telling you 6 months ago, you remember, that we need an intervention. What I think is we're going over the edge. Well, I see the end of the earth, end of the United States, unless we get an intervention. Angels, UFOs, Martin Luther comes back, Jesus, I don't know what. And we got the intervention, but I didn't expect a virus. This virus is the intervention. Thank God the virus is here. And I have great compassion for those who have suffered awful and are suffering. But it's the only way we can get the American mind to shut up. The treadmill of the hamster wheel of go get this, what the TV say, go buy some more, go. We just won't get off that wheel. But we ain't doing it now. We're thinking about how can I go downtown and get a sandwich, come back? Things are very different. So I'm going to tell you something else. And this is old time astrology, and now you're going to really see what's going on. In astrology, one of the things the moon represents, planets in charts always represent something personally, and they always represent something collectively. They just do. And the moon is so complex, powerful. The moon is the public. The public. Trump's public is 7 billion people. Neptune is all about deceiving. Example. What did I warn you for years coming up on 2018? I kept warning you and warning you and warning you about the GOP had their Neptune return in 2018. The GOP had Neptune go all the way around. I got to go this way with you because it's reversed on my screen. Neptune went all the way around the GOP's chart and returned, and they died 2018. Why'd they die? Because 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, they didn't get the message. They didn't turn real with people. Neptune was on them. I told you about return charts last week. They were being evaluated spiritually and found to be spiritually bankrupt, and they died. So why'd they die? Because they lived on smoke and mirrors. That's just bullshit the public. Just bullshit the public. More money, bullshit the public. More money, bullshit the public. Started years ago. Well, you may use smoke and mirrors to get past one person or get past an obstacle, but eventually you end up looking down at yourself. There's nothing there. That's what the GOP is now. I really wonder why anybody's paying the electric bill to keep the Capitol lights on. For what? What do they do? Look what they did to Obama. Look what they're doing now. Letting this guy get away with it. They got this crazy man. They can't get him out of office. We are in deep trouble with Neptune now. We're in deep, deep trouble. So I showed you, well, you can look up the 2015 video I made on Jupiter Neptune where the planets became at an apex on Jupiter Neptune in 2015. I made a video down by the river, and I told you how it was a time with Jupiter Neptune that we could make a great spiritual turning point, or we could go off into la la land, into a cult. That's what a cult is. Neptune is drinking the Kool-Aid. So Liza and I have been talking about this last night and today. The public now, the planet, is in la la land. We're in a collective la la land going on now. We're going through collective amnesia, collective psychosis is what's happening. Right, Mark? Exactly. Okay, what is the collective psychosis about? Well, remember, we're a Cancer country. Do I look at the facts, or do I look at the facts and turn away? Which one? Well, we all know the answer is you got to look at the facts and start dealing with facts. No, you can't put Lysol in your veins. So what Neptune's about? Are we going to continue to believe this BS? When they still ask this guy questions. Reporters still ask this inane little child questions. You can see him running back in his mind trying to figure the next B answer he's going to give you. And people want what he's saying to be true. People ask me, why are so many followers following Trump? And I tell them, what if Trump turned out to be false? They can't afford for him to be false. That's the answer. So, Neptune squaring his moon right now is just like the moments before the Jamestown massacre. Turn out the Kool-Aid. Because we believe the guy, 900 of us, we're going to go somewhere else, somewhere better. Applewhite. Marshall Applewhite. We're all going to put on our Nike tennis shoes and get on the other side of the comet, and we're going to end up in La La Land. We'll be safe. Instead of, what are the facts? Facts are we're in a cult and this guy's a goof. Well, then, what's tougher, and I'm sure you're all seeing it now, going around the internet like fire today, is this video of this woman who is I forget her name, she is a virologist. And in essence, she went to a 26-minute video that's been since taking off of YouTube. And she attacked Fauci, and she said that we're all up against this left-wing conspiracy, et cetera, et cetera. So with Neptune, you're going to get right-wing conspiracies and left-wing conspiracies. But the only way to deal with Neptune is to deal with reality, start building churches that are real churches, start depending on people that are real next to you with real love. So, as Neptune squares the moon, this whole issue of the cabal working against you, which you all know is very real. Okay, this is a big issue now. Okay, because they're the ones that, remember, Neptune's the 12th house. The 12th house is the hidden house. These people are building $1 million tunnels in the mountainsides of New Zealand, so they got somewhere to run, and they're not waiting. They're doing it now. They're going in. They're populating these places, these caverns, whatever you call them, bunkers. These bunkers. And now what's happening to these millionaires is they're being tossed out by the billionaires. Because the billionaires are going to spend more money. You can go underground, stay for 4 years with 50 people and all the food's there and everything. Nurses, doctors, air, all what you want. Well, that's going to work. So the billionaires are tossing out the millionaires. So this is nothing new. But as Neptune keeps hitting his moon, you're going to see him disintegrate. And you're going to see things at the American level disintegrate and at the world level until we get with the proper Neptune, because Neptune is a powerhouse. And if you get with it, you have the basis of that book by David Hawkins, Power, Neptune versus Force, Pluto. The book's called Power versus Force. In the Western world, it's all about force, and the mighty survive. And it doesn't work, and we know it. Neptune works, so then you're in the Gandhi land. When you're in the Gandhi land, he doesn't have to punch you, because God's punching you with his hand, through his hand. Power, true power, versus force. So that was the pivotal book that he wrote. He went on to write about 9 others, which were marvelous. He passed away about 4 years ago, age 84. Reverend David Hawkins, PhD. So what is the main tool that Neptune uses? Well, you've all got one in your living room. It's about 3 foot square by 4 foot square. And that is the voice of Neptune. And what does the TV do? It just keeps bringing you back to commercials. Besides the fact they're all drug commercials, Neptune. Everybody's happy. Take the drug, I'm happy. Take the drug, throw the ball to the kid. We're going mowing. We're going to row the boat. Everybody's happy. Well, you sure as hell don't feel happy, and you look at the TV, and the TV's on, but all of a sudden you feel happy. You feel fine because the TV's fine. Turn the TV off and see what happens. See what the vibration is in your life, etc. So, we've known all along, we've talked a long time on these 3 years on this show about the spiritual movement going up and all the great things happening and all the awful stuff happening with the cabal. And who knows if they're behind the virus? Who knows? They're not reporting the number of deaths. You don't see the graph anymore, do you? You got to go looking to find a graph. There's all kind of lie. We are being lied to big time. because he's only concerned with his re-election. I've always thought it. I feared it. I feared it. I feared it. Now it's true. He will take all of us down for his own sake. He will. He'll take all of us down just for his own purposes. If you disagree with me, that's fine. That's how I feel about him. Okay. Lunar people. When you have a moon like he does all by itself, you become a lunar person. You become it's not Cancerian, it's lunar. When your moon is at the top of the chart or on the ascendant, if it's strongly placed, you're a lunar person. And almost every lunar person I know, and I've done a lot of research on this since we wrote this book about 2010. Lunar people will become the center of everything. The family and the nation have to continually dance around the lunar person. They just have to dance around this person because only this person matters, and this person will raise hell once you take the attention off this person. They are the center, their needs are met. Okay? Now, when you have a bucket pattern to the moon is even more problematic because the moon, keeping this person comfortable is all important. And when you have a lunar person, I finally figured this out after years of yelling and getting real passionate with my clients. You ever have a person you're trying to talk to and they're being unreasonable and you're trying to go over and over, and these are the reasons you got to listen, and they just will not listen to you. That's a lunar person. They're not going to listen to you. I don't care if you've got files of encyclopedias behind you and a whole crew. They're not going to listen because they can't afford to listen. And they want you to solve their problem. That's what's going on. Trump only does one thing. He only does one thing. He does it with his Mars and Leo action. All he's doing is he's paying back somebody that imaginatively hurt him. All the Venus Saturn. He's paying him back. He cuts on people and insults people. Remember the shithole countries? That was nice coming from our president. The shithole countries, and making fun of the guy who was handicapped. He does it on purpose to get more and more attention, more and more of it. I have so many clients that have a lunar person that I have to get down in the dirt with some of them. I have to get down in the dirt with some of them. And my problem is I tend to get into them too far, and I have to keep remaining resisting to stay back. Sometimes you just got to let them go. I have Cancerian fathers that have Cancerian daughters, and the Cancerian daughter is just so far out and so incredibly dependent on the father. And the father's crying to me and wanting to know what he can do. And I really look at everything I can, and I tell him there's nothing I know that you can do. There's nothing you can do. Now, many cancers, it depends on where your moon is and how many planets are at the top half of your chart. Many of them are very, very strong and powerful. But if you get an entity, so Trump's very Cancerian because his moon is strong, even though he's a Gemini. When you get a lunar person, there's nothing you can do. You got to let them sink, because when you let them sink, what will they do? They'll go next door and they'll start depending on that person. They'll go over here down the street, depending on that person. They cannot help it. Now I'm going to really go out on the limb now. I've done a lot of studying on Cancer in the past 10 years, a lot. And I've learned a lot. And I don't care what people say, this is my opinion. There are 11 signs of the zodiac, and then there's Cancer. And in general, I'm not talking about the cancers you know. I'm talking about the sign itself. That sign is very dependent. And I really believe that the other 11 signs are here to take care of that Cancer. Now, if you get a really good, strong Cancer, they can take care of everybody else. But in general, the reason Cancer is that way is, as Liza put it, somebody threw the soul into the water before they could swim. What do you think you would do out in the water? You're going to clutch onto, grab onto anything you can. That's why Cancers are so that way. And that's why they really don't understand that they can save themselves. So it's without a doubt in my mind, it's a fact. The other 11 signs of the zodiac have to take turns taking care of the Cancers. I believe that. I believe that's a natural occurrence. I don't know why, but I'd be BSing myself, and I won't do that if I believed otherwise. I'm not going to. I tell the truth to myself about the planets. If not, my whole house of cards falls down. Now, once you take care of the Cancer, they do just fine, just do great. But when you're with a Cancer, I can't tell you how many times a Cancer comes to my office and they bring their mother with them. And I ask the Cancer a question and they turn to their mother before they answer me. What do you like about this? And they turn to Mom. What does she think about that? Well, that's a severe case. So anyhow, I think it's part of our nature. I think once we take care of the Cancers, they do fine and great, and they really come rising up with fire, and they become leonine. And Leo's full of fire. But I think we also need to learn to care for the Cancer, because that's how we learn caring and supporting. Now, in Trump's case, Trump's already in a million billion pieces. There's no hope for this thing in the White House, whatever this thing is. So what does he do every day? He tries to pull another cloud over your eyes. Just every day it's like, what will he think of next? And it's all based upon he's not going to deal with facts. Can you believe a president and the country's got people dying and he doesn't want to deal with it? Never before in history somebody would have shot him or fired him or something, and that shows you how weak the Constitution is. We're still dealing with this guy, and what's even more unbelievable, he's still 50-50 chance of winning the next term. Say what you want to say. I think it's 50-50. A lot of people say, oh, no, it's 75-25. Well, we thought that last time. So you ask yourself, why are these people supporting him? One of the reasons they're supporting him is because he sounds strong. He dresses very nice. He sounds strong. And he's beaten up on this so-called enemy, which is he's beaten up on the institutions, and his followers are anti-institution too, but the followers aren't seeing the fact that they're getting beat up at the same time. So the whole point of this is to talk about Neptune. Now, I'm a great believer in A Course in Miracles. And A Course in Miracles says that the Holy Spirit has your back. Whatever it is, take that problem and hand it to the Holy Spirit and say to the Holy Spirit, I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know how to deal with it. Please show me another way of looking at it, and then let it go. And the Holy Spirit will solve it. And the Holy Spirit will. So look what's happening now. Look at all the marvelous things that are happening, the stories you're reading every day. The New Yorkers hanging out their windows, banging pots and pans. The people busting their butts in these factories, risking themselves to keep masks being produced. People rising in the lands of Ireland to send money back to the Indians. That the Indians sent them $170 during the potato famine. That's all they could afford. And now Ireland's sending $170 back to each person on an Indian reservation. 170 years later. So there are great, great things happening. And what you got to do is this. When I have a client going through a Neptune transit, I tell them one thing and they may not like it, but I tell them the fact. You can no longer live on soil. You can no longer live. Most people that come to me are very spiritually involved. They're trying. When Neptune goes over you, you have to change your life so it's not on soil anymore because it will turn to quicksand. You got to change your life to be hydroponic. That's it. You got to, from that moment on, start living your life based on spirit. Spirit is water. Spirit is water. Many people that have their spiritual awakening have it happen by nearly drowning. Very common in astrology. I'm sure with Sarah Sachs, I'm sure with your clients, you see this too. With spiritual awakening, they come close to drowning, or it could even be something where they get in a waterfall, but they have water experiences. That's very common. So what we have to do is start to live hydroponically. And that's not simple. That means that we're going to start living based on spirit. And when you do so, you can't lose. But see, we've been taught so incorrectly. We've been taught that the church and the way to do things means we have to behave in a certain way. We don't have to behave in any way. That's what screws everybody up. We have to be natural. And it's our nature to love. It's our nature to include everybody. So while Neptune is on us, one of the things that's here to stay is the confusion. There's nobody on this screen and nobody you know that's going to be able to tell you, tune into this station and that's the truth. Because you're going to get lies and then truth and then lies and truth. It's all mixed up together. Nobody knows what the hell to think anymore. But we do know what to think. We do know what to think. That if we all base our lives on spirit, we don't have to get all Swami Guru here, right? We don't have to talk about Satori and bliss consciousness. We don't have to go there. But the basic principles that Jesus taught, that Buddha taught, that's where we need to go to. And that's what we're seeing. What's the first thing Marcia said? My friend, I'm going to turn her on here. My friend Marcia in New York City. I asked her last week, what's the first thing? How are they doing in New York City? First thing she said, they're doing great because they're coming together. Right? Mm-hmm. What are you seeing up there?
People are still trying to come together.
But they're working on it, huh?
They're working on it. And Governor Cuomo keeps leading the whole state.
Great leader.
And he's bringing in great people to do great things. The gentleman who started Google is going to work with a whole new way of technology for our future.
Yeah, I saw him talk about that.
And Bill Gates to reorganize the education system with the pandemic. I mean, that's amazing. And Mayor Bloomberg to do all this tracking.
Exactly. And in the White House, none of my problem.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable because so many of the citizens have gone down the same track. We have to say goodbye to a lot of people because they cannot handle the evolution that's taken place. Just say goodbye to them. Because if not, they're going to get in the back of the pickup truck with an M16. So what does it really mean? It means that no matter what a person says near you, whatever suggestion they have to you, if it's not spiritually based, we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it. Everything's got to become hydroponic now. Get hydroponic on Astrology Unplugged. That's a t-shirt for you. But it's really the truth. It's really the truth. The only way out of all this bullshit is to start talking about what's true, what's really real. We all know how reality feels when we're with our friends and family, how good that feels, right? Linda Platt I talked to you last week too. We're going to send it around here. At your college, your English professor, what are you experiencing?
Well, you know, it's the uncertainty is the word of the day. We don't, we don't know what education's going to look like in fall. We don't know
Right.
if we're going to survive. We don't know, small schools are going to be very challenged. We don't know how many students are coming back. Students don't know what they're going to be coming back to, or whether they're going to have to live at home. What about the kids overseas? They all want to come back, but there's no place for them to live. I mean, so nobody knows. I mean, really, nobody knows anything. And the good thing is we know we don't know anything.
And we're having a Pluto return at the same time in the American chart.
So there's that. I mean, but let me say something really positive. And it's hard. This has been such a bad day in the news that it's hard to even begin to say anything
Yeah,
positive.
it is.
It's just, I'm ready to be in the blue states of America and try to figure out. I just want to be. I want somebody like Cuomo to be my president. Somebody who's got some common sense. But anyway, I was reading student papers yesterday, and I was really concerned about my one freshman class because they're in their first semester of composition, and we got it, of course, interrupted in the middle. So they're writing their sort of last papers, and we have Zoom classes and all, but that's not the same thing. And the papers were slow to come in, and I kept reading them yesterday, and I thought to myself, I don't understand what I'm seeing, because what I was seeing was some of the best writing I've ever seen.
Really?
What I had asked for.
Why? Why are they getting better?
Because they unhooked from me. I mean, they went in and looked at this thing and figured out what they had to say. And, it took me a while to understand that, oh, I had an idea what this assignment was, but they had a completely different idea that was better. And so I guess one of the things I'm saying is that, we have to do things together, but this is also about people learning to think on their own.
Yeah, and that's exactly what a Libra does. That's your job. Libra, air sign, cardinal. What does that mean? Leading through thinking, leading to think, teaching people how to think. That's your job.
That's my job.
You're good at it. Thank you for doing that. Mark, I want to ask you something. Mark is usually not talking much on the show. I got you on now. Mark does a lot of studying of the social situation. How do we all know that we need to become hydroponic. How do we do so in a world that's so Wall Street, Madison Avenue? How do you have that change come about?
Collectively or individually?
Whatever you want to take on.
Wow, that's a big one, Rick.
Well, maybe you can't hit it all with one bat, but
no. I'm sitting here, I'm contemplating your question. Well, one suggestion that you've already framed for us is disconnecting from the TV. I personally have been TV free for 22 years now.
Really?
Yeah. And what that does is that gets you out of the narrative that's framed by the plutocrats and the oligarchs, et cetera, which is, and Wall Street's an aspect of all that stuff. So that incessant push to buy, and incessant push to compare yourself to other people, that just all slowly starts to melt away. And then what it does is it frees up time that you're not sitting in front of the television digesting things other people want you to digest, to invest in yourself. In this time of the virus, it frees up time to get to know your neighbors and start relying on other people and in a more local community instead of a global community, which really is an illusion to begin with from a marketing Wall Street perspective, global capitalism, et cetera. So that would be one positive suggestion I would tell people. The news is still out there. You can, we live in this age where the news is available in so many different sources. You're gonna have to find out what sources work for you, but you don't have to let the global 1% dictate what you consume anymore,
Yeah.
which is liberation.
Well, that's exactly right. Thank you very much. Very good point. I guess Waldo skipped town on us. Thank you, Mark. I'd like to hear from everybody tonight. Anybody got something on their mind? Waldo came back. Waldo's always got something for me down in the Yucatan. Waldo, let me unmute you here. What's going on in the Yucatan? Tell me how your Sagittarian mind is thinking. I dare
love what
ask.
Mark said. I'm with
Yeah.
Mark. He hit it right in the nail. Because TV is confusing, and don't let you experiment different things in life. You know, you have to get out of the TV most as you can. And if you choose, like Mark say, different kind of news, well, you could choose and some 10, 15 minutes and then do something else. But you are not trapped in front of TV all the time. Here, they going nuts.
Are they?
I mean, they scared. I mean, we are being almost in a standby. We go out and do the shopping or whatever, but it's not work. It's only banks open, supermarkets, and pharmacies.
So
And
your
everybody's scared.
virus is bad there too?
No, it's just the mentality. I mean, for my perspective, and this is my perspective, I think this thing is blow out of proportion.
Do you really?
Yeah, it's a virus. It's a disease, but you don't have to make it so thrilled. Everybody is so scared that they now against their neighbors. They are now look like a communist party, you know, like a communist country, saying, "Oh, the neighbor came out without the face tag,"
Yes.
you know, all this stuff. You know, this is crazy. And for me, I had that transit. I had Moon square Neptune.
Did you? Wait a minute, you
Yeah.
had Neptune square moon.
Neptune square Moon transit.
What was it like for you personally?
Well, it's been there for a year or so. So in my case, I relate to what you are talking about seeing everything in a more big way, you know, like a spiritual awakening for a lot of people. A spiritual awakening. The intuition is becoming huge. I mean, when I sit and watch a TV or watch a video or a news, I can tell if they lying. I mean, I just, and they're all lying. I'm sorry to tell you this, but they're all lying.
Most of
I haven't seen one yet. There's no line, because if you go back to history and you really do your homework, they are lying. I mean, they've been killing people now. This is how far they're going to sell you the lie. They're killing people. They're stopping.
Well, it sounds to me like you picked up a lot of the real positive traits and you use Neptune.
It's so hard to see what they censoring videos in YouTube. I mean, in the country of liberties and freedom of speech, they censoring videos that never they have done in their life. I mean, if you cannot see that, it is something.
My show's still on here. I guess I'm lucky.
You know, you have to see all the perspectives, but you don't want people to censor your information, even if they think it's wrong. Let us decide if it's good or bad. I mean, you know what I figured out when you were talking about Trump astrology? Let's go back to the astrology for a minute. Trump doesn't have earth element. He's not earth element in Trump's chart.
He's Gemini.
He doesn't have earth.
Earth.
no air.
I'm sorry. Yeah, he doesn't
So
have.
if you're going through a transit of Neptune and you don't have Earth in your chart, how are you gonna ground that energy?
Well, you're exactly right. He has no ability to ground, which is why.
So, and the United States has Neptune and Pluto only in Earth. So United States has transpersonal planets in Earth. So that is very difficult also to accommodate.
Yeah, and finding out last week this was devastating for me. Finding out
So
this.
you have to, I've been telling you for a long time that you don't put attention to Trump because Trump cannot do the really, he cannot bring down the energy all the way because it doesn't have Earth.
This I found last week is just devastating. The USA's chart to have Mars in Gemini squared by Neptune. It's just devastating. This is why we are
United States a Pluto transit. I mean,
disposable.
You had to deal with the Pluto. United States going to a Pluto transit. It doesn't matter anything else. You had to get everything on the surface and clean the house. Yeah. And the house had to be clean all the way from the bottom up, you know.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
This is happening. The virus is happening because it's the only thing that had to be, that was going to be worldwide, countrywide, and people can show their real themselves, you know. This is Pluto. This is Pluto for the United States. For Trump's chart, he doesn't have Earth element. So he's just blowing everything out of, you know, whatever comes to their mind, he just spill it out.
Yeah,
and let you figure out.
Notice how almost every Gemini you ever see, every other sentence has the word interesting in it. When he was talking about the Lysol, he was talking about the light inside. He talked about it was an interesting idea.
He just say whatever he hears.
I know, but that's the word. That's the critical word with Gemini. Take a long time to think about what does it mean when somebody's interested. Something is interesting. What it means is it titillates your mind, but you're not going to dare touch it. It titillates you. It's neat to think about. But the Gemini, third sign of the zodiac, that's why it's got to go through the next sign of Cancer. It hasn't gone through the emotional fires that Cancer puts it through. That's why Geminis, if you notice, all my friends are Gemini men. They have fun and they're light and they dance lightly, but they don't get down deep and dirty into things. And I think you're very right about Trump. He has no ability to lead this.
Well, it's just why he's represent us. You know, you have to make your question, why is Trump representing this part of life right now, this evolutional part? Why?
Look at what happened with Bernie Sanders with the Virgo and all the Earth in his chart. He came across with a lot of good answers, but he, in my opinion, he used the wrong word and he scared the hell out of everybody. He used the word socialist. And it doesn't matter what a socialist is or a democratic.
I go with Mark.
Huh?
Mark say something very important. In order to work this out, go out there and talk to and make a community effort in your community, because that's the only way you're gonna get something done and really make it little different in each community, in each neighborhood, even. But forget the party. I mean, this is becoming too big party lines, you know. This is no time for parties. Sorry, this is not time for Republicans or Democrats. If you cannot see it now, you're never going to see it because this is going out of proportion. And that's what the media want to sell you, that this is a fight between Republicans and Democrats. This is why the lesson is not going to be hit direct, because people still think that they have a country with two parties and Republicans and Democrats. And this is, sorry, and I served 15 years in the service, I did my public safety cert for 10 years in the emergency department, and I'm travel to many countries and work, and it's everywhere because people think that they have to follow certain idiosyncrasies. You know, you have to. This is put your life right now in the table. This is life and death. This is the people that are close to you. You know what Neptune did? This is Neptune doing everything just by the book. He puts you in a place that you cannot do anything, just to surrender, like David Hawkins used to say in the book, surrender.
All right, Walter, I want to get on to some other people. I like what you said right there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys, and be safe.
One of the great things he just said was the word surrender. And that's exactly how you deal with a Neptune transit. You get in the water and you let go. But Americans think that if you surrender means the cowboys, the Indians are going to come and get us. That's not what surrender means. Surrender means different things at different levels. Who else have some comments they'd like to get involved tonight? Anybody else raise your hand? Please do. I want to hear from you. Get involved here. Sarah, go ahead. Go ahead, Sarah.
One thing I found interesting with the summer coming up is the 1874 founded Chautauqua had a meeting last week, and they decided that they were going to go online only. There's not going to be any programs there. While Lilydale, the 1879 founded, and there was probably around the same month, community, wants to wait until the 15th. And I'm not saying this in a judgmental way, but I think they're trying to make some kind of bargain and hopefully have something of the season. And I think they're hoping that Cuomo is going to say some magic words or something, but I found it interesting that Chautauqua was so decisive and they voted unanimously not to have a regular season, and yet Lilydale is kind of hanging back there. And I was wondering if there could be anything in their charts that, you know, you have one that's very decisive and the other seems not to be so, or they're waiting for something else to help them to decide. And I somehow feel as though maybe that's the way we've been living our lives, like in the accepting what it is and working with it on one hand, and on the other hand, kind of hoping for a miracle or somehow kind of bargaining our way out of it. So I was just looking at those two communities pretty much. It's an interesting thing because I do spend a lot of my summer up there, but it could also be that even if Lilydale has something of a season, I don't think I would go up and participate because I want to look after myself and stay healthy. And because I think in the looking at the reality, Chautauqua said, well, we're okay in Chautauqua County, but we have Buffalo's a hot spot, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, New York. Do we want all of these people coming in and to an older community that's vulnerable? So they got very practical, and I think maybe Lilydale may be trying to figure out how they can make it work somehow.
All right, Sarah, thank you. I'm going to move on to give everybody a chance. Thank you for chipping in. Other people have thoughts on their mind you want to share? Come on. Amy, come on, Amy. What's on your mind? I haven't seen you in a long time. And you're a Cancer. Let me try to get you unmuted. There. What do you think about what I said about the sign of Cancer, huh?
Well, I'm not the typical Cancer because I'm
I know you're not
a rising.
I know you're not a typical Cancer. That's okay.
And my computer's freezing, so I hope you can hear me.
You're breaking up, but I'm so glad to hear you. Haven't seen you in months. So what are you thinking?
I agree on the whole media thing. I am not engaged. Like, I might watch the TV, you know, just briefly in the morning, just a blip, but that's it. You won't even find me much on Facebook. Like, literally, I told all my friends, like, I might be on here for 5 minutes to check on my son who's in Iraq, just to make sure he's still posting and alive. But other than that, I am listening to podcasts, reading books, spending time in self-growth, utilizing my time. I've made a little garden on my balcony. Hopefully this world doesn't get into them. But other than that, and I'm working from home, I'm very blessed to do that. And I think that's so ironic because they kept saying when we left the office, now you know that you have to return to the office. And I'm like, no, we're not going to, or most of us aren't going to. So I've made it known to my boss that I will be the caboose if I will be the last person if I have to come back into the office, you know. Just because
So how are you surviving?
I am doing really well. I mean,
No, I mean, how? What are you doing specifically?
Actually, the irony to it is I eventually did switch jobs finally, and it was right on time before COVID hit. And I am now I work for a company that does our state's Medicaid insurance.
What are you doing to avoid the virus is what I mean.
Okay, so as far as like this, I've always been very healthy. I build up my immunity. I eat mostly organic food if possible. I don't take any medications. I take, quite a few supplements, positive mindset, meditation every night, those types of things. Just a common practice, what I would consider spiritual things.
We got Buster with us. Thank you, Amy. Buster, I noticed somebody came in. Are you listening in, Buster? I guess he's not. Buster is a big-time stage performer here in Pittsburgh. Okay, everybody else, we got lots of time. Everybody, come on, Susan in Cleveland. Don't tell me you have nothing to say. You're having a good time up there because you're using Zoom, right?
Yeah, I'm playing with technology and I'm playing with painting and art, and I amuse myself very easily. But then I've got that reverse of Trump. I've got my sun in Sag and my moon in Gemini,
when you have the reverse of that, it's almost like saying you got the same thing. Don't even struggle with it. That's my opinion. Gemini, Sag, or Sag, Gemini, they're about the same thing.
And I've also gone through that Neptune hit on my sun over the last few years.
All right, in general, this is a Neptune show. In general, explain to us the Neptune pluses and minuses you went through in the last year when it was squaring your sun.
It is now 20 and my son was 18. Would it be a year or would it be about 3 years?
You give it about 15 degrees, so it can be several years. The intense period is about 2 years. But what was the plus and the minus?
I don't know about plus and minus specifically. I mean, it's hard to quantify what was good and what was bad about it. I would say the dominant theme for me was figuring out where I belonged and where was home. Where are my roots?
Okay, well, that is not a Neptune transit.
Really?
Hell no, Neptune doesn't have to ask you where you belong because you belong everywhere. Now, you're describing Saturn. Now, Saturn must have been on you at the same time, hitting something that bring those questions about. Neptune doesn't ask you. Neptune knows that you're a, quote, hippie child of the universe. Okay.
Well, I mean, I've been doing.
What happened to your artwork and your art inspiration?
I've been branching out a lot the last 3 years, trying new thing after new thing after new thing.
That's the Uranus in you. So that's Uranus getting hit. That's the Uranus that caused that, and I told you that would. But you are a medium. You're a medium, right?
Well, yeah. Spirit art has been a big thing.
Didn't your mediumship get a lot stronger?
Yeah, and spirit portraits over the last 2 years have been a big deal. And now I'm painting people's guardian angels and spirit guides, as well as their loved ones in spirit.
Are you finding that it's coming through you more naturally as opposed to following a technique?
Oh, yeah, techniques are long gone. I mean, I've been doing this a long time anyway, but it just feels right. You do what, it's muscle memory now.
Well, you're dealing with Neptune at a very high dimension. Not a lot of people can get there, and that's marvelous. And when you do, everything else starts to work.
Right. Seems to.
You've been doing a
I'm
lot.
not,
You've been smiling a lot this past year compared to a couple of years ago.
well, I'm home.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. We're
Thank you.
glad to hear from you. We have some more time. Anybody else? Sarah, we got another Sarah. We got a Barbara. We got Kathleen. Things on your mind? Okay, let me tell you what I think. I'll wrap this up. And I'd like Anita and Marcia, and if Taylor's interested, to stay on after this broadcast ends. When Neptune passes by, once it's past you, okay, and it gets 2, 3 degrees, 4 degrees away, most people say, where in the hell have I been? And people say, you've had your head in the fog for a couple of years. Where you been? Literally. That's not abnormal. And another way of looking at it, it's very normal for when a planet passes you, for you to then start using its energy appropriately. Because when these planets are on exact, the windows in the house are shaken so violently. The planet is so strong, if you're sensitive especially, it's hard to use it. You're fighting just to keep one foot in front of the other. So you'll find with a Neptune transit that it will become much more productive for you and easier to deal with once the months pass. Now, with this guy in the White House, who we're dealing with now, you're looking for a neon sign, all capital letters, scandal. That's what you're going to get. You're going to get massive scandals out of Washington, D.C. because he's doing all the things you don't do. He's doing the escaping, etc. So I don't want to talk about him anymore. So I think tonight you got a good idea what's happening. It is the reason that the collective is confused. It is the reason that the collective is unsure. And as I told you, the only way you get out of the uncertainty, the only way you get out of uncertainty that I found astrologically is to become hydroponic. And that's a silly word. Picture a tomato growing up in the air, hung with strings hanging up, as growing in the air. But whatever, you gotta start growing your life from your spiritual life first. It's got to become primary. Now I'm going to bring this recording to an end. I thank all you folks who've come in from YouTube. I want to show you this graphic. In case you don't know this, if you ever want to join us on Thursday nights, all you need to do, Thursday nights, 8 o'clock Eastern, is go to this URL here, Star Self Unplugged, starself.com/unplugged to join us. Other than that, all of these episodes are on my page on YouTube, Rick DiClemente. There's 171 of them there now. Anyhow, I appreciate you all coming. I think this will help you tonight when you go out in the world to realize this Neptune energy is God speaking to us. It's not some cloud that's stupid. This is God's grace trying to get through to us. That's what's happening. That's a marvelous thing, and it really manifests in this group, which is a wonderful thing to have. So I'm going to say good night for now. See you next week. Please, everybody, be safe and dodge in between the little droplets, the droplets in the air. Go in between them. Be safe. Love you all. We'll see you next week.
Wear your masks.
We don't want to infect everybody.